Hello, welcome to a new edition of our show, Money Means Business. And as you always say, in business means money. Stability and business mean a lot of money. There is a lot happening, lots of developments happening in Egypt, in the Middle East, and worldwide, definitely all interrelated. Well, talking about what we just tackled are the different developments on the local scene mainly, and starting by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a meeting on Saturday with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and Minister of Finance Mohamed Mait. During the meeting, the President gave his directives to focus on human and social development and to resume exerting the utmost efforts to lower the public debt and budget deficit and to pave the way for more investment in order to raise the competitiveness of the Egyptian economy. The head of state also stressed the importance of reflecting the improvement of economic performance on the quality of public services and guaranteeing that all brackets are benefiting from the development revenues, especially the needy ones. President Sisi spokesperson Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the meeting also discussed the financial indicators in the July-September period of the current fiscal year 2019-2020. As Mait said, that the public budget deficit dwindled from 108% of the local production in July 2017 to 90% in July 2019, in addition to realizing growth rate of 5.6% in 2019, the highest in the Middle East, North Africa, and of the highest in the whole world. The International Monetary Fund maintained its positive outlook for Egypt's economic growth rate, predicting it to reach 5.9% by the end of the fiscal year 2019-2020. The IMF also lowered its expectations on the inflation rate from 10.7% to 9.6%, citing an improvement in financial market indicators, boosted investor confidence, and the recovery of tourism and natural gas sectors. The International Monetary Fund have said the policies of the Central Bank of Egypt, CBE, are aimed at continuing the decrease of inflation rates in Egypt in its fifth and final revision of the performance of the Egyptian economy. The IMF expected that inflation will further go down to around 5%. In this report, the IMF said that enhancing social protection in one of the priorities of the Egyptian government since starting its economic reform program. It added that the social protection policies are focusing on important sectors such as health, education, and infrastructure. And welcome back. We have online Dr. Yumna Al-Hamaqi, Professor of Economics at Ain Shams University. Hello. Good evening, Dr. Yumna.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Yumna, the President, in his meeting with the Prime Minister, gave his directives to focus on human and social development, to resume exerting the utmost efforts to lower the public debt and budget deficit, and also for the services to be everything to have an impact on services, to have better services, and to be felt by the all brackets in society, to feel it like, like not only the indexes of macroeconomics, but also microeconomics, so that the normal citizen will be feeling more the lowering of inflation and all the improvement in the economy.
Yes, actually, what we are trying to revise for the last period is to how extent the economic reform has benefited, the majority of population, starting from the services that are provided for specifically the middle class and the poor people. We all know that we have significant activities in order to address the slums and to address poverty, specifically in rural areas. We know that the most poorest villages are existing in Upper Egypt, and nowadays Upper Egypt is witnessing massive investment and attracting foreign direct investment. And if we have a large investment in Upper Egypt, this will induce or affect, the possibility of enhancing the quality of living for poor people in these areas. But this is requiring upgrading their skills, and we are, as economists, and nowadays we are asking for improving, the skills of youth specifically in these areas, so that we can improve their choices and their capabilities to improve the quality of life. This is the only way. For me, I believe that economic empowerment of poor people is quite an important way to address our problems, specifically regarding unemployment and poverty. Besides, we witness revising, the services, as you mentioned, provided to the middle class and poor people. The system of ration cards has been revised lately, and we are about to rectify a lot of processes that have been done and weren't actually in favor for poor people. Besides enhancing the quality of education and health services, as these are basic requirements to enhance human capital.
Yes, Dr. Youn, also the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, lauded the policies taken by the Central Bank of Egypt and said that they're aimed at continuing the decrease of inflation rates in Egypt. Also, not only that the International Monetary Fund maintained its positive outlook for Egypt's economic growth rate, predicting it to reach 5.9% by the end of the fiscal year 2019-2020. What does that signify?
Yes, the report of IMF lately, was completely in favor of the Egyptian economy, and mentioning the Egyptian economic reform has been very successful. This can be quite clear if we revise the macroeconomic indicators, starting from budget deficit as a percentage of GDP, the rate of inflation, the rate of unemployment, and the reserves of Egypt has increased substantially during the last period. So, the IMF is considering the economic reform of Egypt as a successful experience that could be could be a lesson to be learned for other developing countries. Still, some challenges are needed to be addressed, but generally speaking, the program was quite a success.
Yes, Dr. Youn Al-Hamaki, Professor of Economic Science, Shansi University, thank you very much for being with us. back again to Money Means Business, and we are with our guest, engineer Salah Hafiz, former Vice President of the General Petroleum Corporation. Welcome, sir, with us. As always, you honor us with your presence. There is a lot to talk about, besides the different economic development taking place on the local scene. Actually, of course, oil and what's happening lately, what has been happening. Let me just read you developments, and then we can comment on that. The tripartite summit that took place, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi hosted Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiadis and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis for the 7th three-way summit in Cairo on Tuesday. The three-way summit reviewed regional issues of mutual concern, including combating terrorism and illegal migration, in addition to fields of cooperation among the three countries, especially in the energy sector. Addressing a joint press conference following the talks, President Sisi warned that instability in the Middle East threatens all countries in the region. The president noted that the three countries share same views on a number of issues of mutual concern, as they agreed that reaching political solution for the Libyan crisis is the only option, and the significance of giving back the Palestinian people their legitimate rights. President Sisi also welcomed the signing of a number of deals, especially an agreement on preventing the double taxation with Cyprus. For its part, the Cypriot president said that the three countries had agreed on extending cooperation and dialogue, adding that they agreed on encouraging investment among the three countries through agreements. Anastasiadis said that the summit covered cooperation in the fields of energy, security, defense, and environment. There is a lot to talk about, but I'll leave this to our distinguished guests to elaborate on. Welcome back, sir. Let me introduce you again. You don't need the introduction, definitely, but for the name, Engineer Salah Hafiz, former Vice President of the General Petroleum Corporation, plus lots of other titles and lots of other achievements, of course. The trilateral summit that took place in Egypt, let's start with it, with the different developments taking place on the local and actually the Middle East scene.
Mm-hmm. Geographically, this area is very important because Egypt, with the new development in the Suez Canal area, which will be one of the largest logistical area in the world, it's connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. Africa is a virgin market, and Egypt is the gateway to Africa, and to Europe. The largest market in the world is Europe. Yeah. Short of course, the Americas, this is another entity altogether. But so the European Union, the gateway to the European Union is Cyprus and Greece. Mm. So this is very important to make commercial and strategic agreements with the three countries. This is one thing, but more importantly now, the gas issue plays very instrumental role in controlling the relations between countries in this area. Because again, I've said it before, the largest market is Europe, and Europe is catered with gas from Russia, the main player, and then the North Sea, the second, Algeria, with the reserves of gas and infrastructure of liquefaction and pipelines to Europe, and Egypt was at one point of time when we were exporting gas. Now we are resuming the exportation again after the Zohr discovery, plus the fact that we are turning Egypt into an energy hub. Yeah. So this will enable us to import gas, liquefy, we get right of way, and add value to it and export it again. The problem in the East Mediterranean, there are three countries that they haven't signed to become party to the international waters agreements, namely Israel, Syria, and Turkey. Syria, I don't know the reason, but of course, Israel, they didn't participate, they didn't take part in this agreement because of Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is supposed to have a corridor of exclusive economic zone all the way to the borders with Cyprus.
Yes.
And they're ignoring that. They said, no, they cannot have a strip, small strip can have all this area.
Yes.
And there are actually discoveries that were made there. Turkey, because of the islands, Cyprus, and other islands in the Aegean Sea,
Yes.
plus a small little island, Castello Riso, on the coastline south of Turkey, which is masking all the areas between Egypt and Turkey to be exclusive economic zone.
Yeah.
So they have nothing to lose, and I think they forgot about joining the European Union because they're creating so many problems with some countries,
Yes.
namely Cyprus and
Yes.
Greece. But
Yeah.
Greece they don't have any way of threatening
Yeah.
Greece.
Yeah.
Because, well, they all belong to the NATO, of course. This is another problem.
Yeah.
So they started looking for gas and drilling, sending submersible or signing agreements with companies to look for gas in the economic zone of Cyprus, the exclusive economic zone. And the pretext they're using that the northern Cyprus is independent, and the only country that approved it was Turkey.
Georgians this
And
year.
we're safeguarding the interest of this. Of course, this is not true at all, because the international community is totally against it.
Yeah.
And this is concerning the relation between Cyprus, Turkey, and Greece.
Yes.
The other point, which is the Kurdish area, the Kurds in Iraq and Syria, they have vested interest to control this area, not only because of the historical problems between the two groups,
Yes.
but this is the gateway again for the pipelines that were contemplated at one point of time to be built
Yeah.
from Iran, from Qatar, and the Caspian Sea, to take this gas to the European market through pipelines as different to the liquefaction, because
Yes.
liquefaction and the waterway is costing a lot of money to transport the gas from this area. So Russia doesn't like that, and this is why they had problems with Ukraine, and Turkey. They expected this pipeline, which was Nabucco pipelines, to go through this the Kurdish area,
Yeah.
and then it will be the gateway to Europe.
Yes.
So there were 3 lines going through Turkey, and they had a deal to get 15% of the gas for their use. It's like a very large field. If they get 15% of all the gas going through just the right of way to go through Turkey. So this was all aborted by Russia. And the problems of Kurdistan and Turkey.
Yes.
So now there is a deal. There must be a deal between America and to hurt Russia, because it's not to the advantage of Russia to have this line to revive or to reinstate the negotiations of this line. So it's creating a lot of problems in this area for the gas.
Yes.
So the gas area, the commercial area, which is the Suez Canal development area, and the relations between Europe through Cyprus and Greece, through Egypt to Africa.
Yes.
This is again another. It's all commercial.
So, what's happening right now is just to secure this area, and the pipelines is like one of the reasons.
Yeah, so they're working against Turkey, of course, because they are going out of their mind now. You know? And at the same time, you know, they have to talk about terrorism and sign agreements about the protection from terrorism, and the Palestinian issue is very important to be addressed in such. You know, we have to include this issue in all our negotiations with the neighboring countries. So it's a very interesting discussions and negotiations at the political level that took place between the three
leaders. Definitely.
leaders.
It's a very crucial time. A very
Indeed.
important time in which sad developments are taking place on the scene. Of course, you know, for some, which is not sad, they do have their own, they covered certain areas, well, covered by other pretexts. But how does this, is it in any way, well, you talked about demarcation before, demarcation lines which are clear, and Egypt, you know, has its own lines which are very clear, and nobody can really refute that. But is there any way that all these happenings are in a way affecting our gas and oil and the going and coming and all what we are working for?
No, we are safe 100% because we started in 1990. We put after the agreement was put forward in 92. Then we were ahead of all other countries in the area because we had already some discoveries in not the deep water because the technology had not developed at this time. But we had fairly deep water, relatively deep. But other countries didn't have any activities, drilling activities for hydrocarbons in the East Mediterranean. So we already had vested interest. So I was in this group to identify the terms of this agreement, how to do the demarcation line between neighboring countries. So the first line we put the basic points and then basic lines. And then the connection, the point of connection of borders, of the land borders with the coastline, we drew the line between us and Gaza Strip, not Israel. And Israel was party to this agreement because they are the occupying country, and America, the United States, was also party because they were working on the peace agreement, and then Egypt and the Gaza group leaders. So this was done, and then there was another point between north of Israel, between Israel and Cyprus, and between us and Cyprus. So we have all identified this point. And then from this point, we went towards west. The west, the last point was disputed because Turkey, they said it should be between Egypt and Turkey. But because of this island overlooking the coastline of Turkey, masked the rights, because islands, sovereign islands, if they're inhabited, then they have the right for exclusive economic zones. And this is what destroyed all the hopes of Turkey to have large enough exclusive economic zones, because all of the Greece islands in the agency, and this small island, and Cyprus. So they have very little zones. I cannot say, I mean, it's unfair. I mean, this is more than 150 nations have signed this agreement. And the remaining either have disputes, even the states, they have some problems between the federal government and the local state governments for telling to decide if the exclusive economic zones belongs to the state or the federal. So they have their own problems, and Israel because the reason I mentioned. So the demarcation line, it went from Cyprus and then was just hanging loose because of the problem of the islands. And then lately, our president decided to go and sign an agreement with Corfu, for instance. They're very close to Turkey. So they're masking a whole lot of area.
Well, you know, this is a Greek island.
It's a Greek island.
Kerkira, Corfu.
Yeah. So we have signed an agreement and put the basics according to the international law to draw this line, the demarcation line.
Yes.
And then remaining with Libya, but Libya, they signed the agreement but not the protocol, and they are in limbo actually. They're not
the problem
participating anything. So we have done this. In this case, we have all the demarcation lines identified, and in the Red Sea, of course, we've already signed the agreement between Saudi Arabia and us, all the way to latitude 22. So we're covered with this, and 100% in line with the international agreements.
Definitely. Are there, well, you know, with all the mess around us, all the countries, again, you know, let me ask again the same question, but another way. All the countries that are surrounding us right now, you know, like have political problems. Of course, or not only Turkey is involved in Syria, but of course, you know, it's again involved in Iraq. And then we do have, you know, like Libya with what is going through and what's happening right now. You know, the borders they're trying. We're just pushing all that and all the say the terrorists that they're trying to send to us, you know, to temper with our security and stability, but it doesn't work. God's gracious, you know, and of course our army is stopping all that. That is not affecting us now or in the future in our own excavations, deep water or anything like that.
Well, the East Mediterranean is seen as a unit.
Yeah.
The other problems outside, but Syria is part of it.
Of course.
Lebanon is part of it, and they have problem with the demarcation line between them and Israel. Egypt, of course, is the concerning the gas. Of course, we have the largest reserves, the largest infrastructure, and the location between the three continents. But we cannot ignore Libya because of the terrorism, and they have lots of resources,
Yes.
gas and oil.
Yeah.
So this has to be addressed, and we have to agree, and we have this forum. Libya is not in the forum, but many countries, Italy in the forum, Greece, Cyprus, Israel and Egypt and Jordan.
Yes.
Jordan, because they have vested interest, because they don't have enough resources, and they want to tap to the resources that exist in the East Mediterranean, or they have resources that they want to market. Of course, we're all aiming at the European market, and this is the big fight. The Ukraine, we all remember Ukraine and the problems,
Of course.
because the southern parts of the pipelines that go from Russia to Europe, they're more important in the south than in the north. In the north, because of the weather and some technical problems, so most of it goes through Ukraine. And United States also, they were igniting this. And creating some misunderstanding, because they were looking into exporting their shale gas through Alaska to Norway and North Sea, and they were also aiming at this market.
Yes.
So this is the big cake that
everybody wants part of.
Yeah.
Some way, one way or the other.
And then the second step will be the price.
Okay.
You know, they all want to organize their resources in order for them to cost less and have better markup But if you have to liquefy and send from, Europe is getting gas from Venezuela. They're getting gas from West Africa. Not through pipelines, of course, through liquefaction. Liquefaction costs about 10% of the gas, to liquefy, plus the cost of the vessels that transport the gas all the way to Europe.
Which is going to be more expensive?
More expensive.
Definitely, than the one that can be done, like close to
pipeline.
Exactly.
In pipeline, because
Yes.
pipeline is it comes out as gas from the fields and then puts processed, to fit the quality of the gas they need in Europe, and then they put in the pipeline and off it goes. So the technical, the political, the supply and demand, and mainly the cost is the name of the game these days in this part of the
Definitely.
world.
And what comes first, politics or economy? Both are integrated.
They introduce issues that help them reach their target.
Yes.
Like I believe the Kurds problem and
Definitely,
Russia.
that exists. But
this
then what
corner,
happens right now? Yeah.
This corner, pipelines were going through Iraq
Yeah.
and Syria. The very far corner, east corner of Syria, the Nabucco pipeline was supposed to go through this area.
Yeah.
And of course with problems with the Kurds, which was induced, I think. It was induced, then they can exaggerate the problem
and have a pretext to go there and just
Exactly.
Protect their own, let's say, interests, or just create, get part of the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. We'll go for a break and we'll come back, resume our talk. Stay tuned to us, don't go away. We're back again with our guest, Engineer Salah Hafiz. Then a lot, every day there are developments, and some very dangerous developments, that on the spur of the moment they take place. We are talking about now what's happening in Syria and the bombardment of people, and then there are lots of political interests invested in that for different parties that are, going toward proxy war. Also, talking about let's say like the different and latest excavations. We talked about Zohr. Are there any kind of more excavations that are there that are expected to be announced soon?
I don't know. Of course, this is something, because exploration in general is very, there is a big risk, and companies, they manage the risk in different ways. Of course, this is my profession, So plus especially the deep waters, they are operated by large companies.
Yeah.
They have the technology, they have the financial resources, and they are the ones that they can afford risking such a venture. So those companies are listed. So they are very careful not to leak any information.
Yeah.
And they, when I was in charge of exploration in EGPC, I was not supposed to make an announcement or press release unless it is agreed between me and the company and endorsed by the minister.
Yes.
Because it can be inside information that people in the stock market can make money out of. Not even even the annual reports, they are very careful not to
Divulge anything like that.
So as an explorationist myself, I think I see big potential because the studies about the resources before the discoveries show that we have this area is very rich in gas.
Yeah.
So we have discovered some, and some remain to be discovered, and it can be double the amount that was originally estimated.
Definitely.
This is how we see the resource estimate. You can be off by an order of magnitude. You can have half the amount that you anticipated or double. Now we know that we don't have half because we've discovered more than half already. So it looks that there will be many to be discovered in the future. But now that we're turning into becoming a hub, energy hub, it's not very important that we export our gas. Because like in the States, for instance, in the States they say that they're net exporter of hydrocarbon. They actually they're net importer of the crude oil. They have their production does not cover maybe 50%. They import and add value by refining, by and of course the gas, the shale gas and the shale oil is helping them a lot. But at the end, after you add value to what you import, then this is reflected as barrels of oil. You can commercially you can put it as barrels of oil. So they're net exporter, and yet they import and add value and export again. So in Egypt, the hub, this is the beauty of it. It's energy hub. You can get crude oil, refine it, and then sell fuel. You can get the gas from countries that cannot afford to build their own infrastructure, like the liquefaction or pipelines. If they build a pipeline from Israel to Europe through the deepest part of the Mediterranean, which is in our exclusive economic zone, more than almost 3,000 meter deep, it will take years and years, and this is money, and it will cost a lot of money. So the hub is like the Suez Canal. You get right of way, you get cost for liquefaction. We partner in liquefaction. We can export, generate electricity and sell. So there's added value to the products. So the hub will be like in the States, what they do in the States, the gas hub. Because they have gas hub, they have electricity hub, they have different hubs. But we say energy hub, and this will be the gateway to Africa. We already export electricity to Saudi Arabia and Sudan and Jordan. And we're going to expand in exporting electricity. And we have the largest renewable energy plants to generate electricity. So this is very important, the gas hub. that we've talked about and addressed many times before.
Yes.
But it's, if it works, of course, we're being resisted from other markets.
That's what I want to ask. Is there competition? Would that create competition between the
Well,
surrounding-
the competition of gas, I told you, was in Turkey.
Yes, definitely.
In Turkey, they already called
Yeah.
the gas hub to Europe.
Okay.
3 pipelines, they will get 15% of all the gas.
That they are selling.
The share of the Caspian Sea and Turkey and Qatar and Iran that go through this pipeline. They will get 15% of that.
Very big share.
Very big share.
One also question for people who would not know what shale oil, because they might be confusing between the name of the company and shale oil.
Shale oil exists in a layer of, we call it shale, which does not have, usually contains hydrocarbon, but doesn't have the quality of the reservoir rock that we usually explore for and extract the oil from. So the oil is there, stagnant, you cannot move.
Yeah.
So they drill wells, horizontal wells, and introduce hydrocracking with its energy intensive again, and they put chemicals and sand to keep the cracks open, and then the oil goes, because there is no what we call permeability, the ability of oil to move within the rock. It doesn't exist in the shale, and it's very, very fine material. So we drill wells, and we
Crack the rocks.
crack the rocks, and then put the solids to keep the cracks open, and then the oil seeps within the cracks, and we produce, whether it be gas or oil for this matter.
Which makes the quality, what is it good or not good, or the quality of the oil?
It can be, gas is the very high quality.
Oh, okay.
Gas and oil, it depends on how much it was cooked. It can be heavy oil or light oil.
So shale is just the
Shale
quality of the
is
operation
a
itself.
rock.
Okay.
A rock we name shale, like the silt and other. But usually when we say shale, it's a type of rock that has very, very, very fine material. The sand is a type of rock that has, it's the size of grains. The shale is the size of grain, and limestone is something else. But the sand has bigger grains and intermediate spaces between the grains. So if the oil migrates to the sandstone, then you can get it from drilling well. But if it's cooked in the shale and part of it expelled, the remaining part, which is huge, in the States they have quadrillions, and this figure you don't hear in the oil. You hear trillions and billions, but quadrillions in oil and gas is unheard of. So you get quadrillions of gas but the cost, of course, of drilling and hydrocracking, it's energy intensive, it's high cost. But
It makes it more expensive than...
It makes it more expensive, but the productivity is high, and it is very lucrative. But the cost of drilling well and extracting the liquid or the gas is higher than the conventional way, as we call it.
Okay, Africa, and since we are this year chairing the OAU, Egypt is doing that. The fields of cooperation with Africa, are there any kind of cooperation in the gas and oil fields with Africa?
Well, Africa has gas in Nigeria and in Equatorial Guinea and in the West Africa, because of the deltas. Usually gas is connected with deltas, because deltas, they get plants, and the plants, they when they're cooked, they generate gas more than the other organic, the algae and other organic matters. So they have, it's rich of gas in this area. This is the rich parts is the deltas all over the world, and the Nile, the East Mediterranean is also deltas, because the water historically in millions and millions, tens or hundreds of millions of years, deltas were forming underneath the water.
Yeah.
So they have, but they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have. They cannot export gas within. They have some pipelines, but very few.
Yeah.
So Egypt, if they works on that, on building pipeline and infrastructure to Africa,
Yeah.
then there is huge markets and roads and the waterways. They can use trains. They can make infrastructure. Egypt will be the gateway, and
Yeah.
they are on. Egypt is on the Silk Road,
Yeah.
that is being built by China and India and Japan. You know, this will be one of the capitals of the Silk Road.
Definitely.
So they're working
We
very
should actually
diligently.
make the best out of it, since we are there in a very important position and location. We can do a lot, with the Suez Canal and
Yeah, and I was all for the project of the Suez Canal. Is not to widen the pathway, the waterway. It's to be logistic between east and west and south and everything. And our leader and the executive the cabinet are working very, very diligently to developing all the resources in Egypt,
Yes.
all potential resources,
Yes.
not unused resources internally, and potential resources to export to Africa.
Yeah.
Very on all fronts, on all fronts.
Definitely. Sir, before delving to other issues, one question that was, when we were talking about oil, one question that was, someone asked me, said that we talked about oil and all that, and that came into a comic question, but, of course, obviously he did not know, well, he was like ignorant on the part, let's say, or uninformed on the part. Then, if, oil is left for the companies that come for drilling and all that, why do we have a ministry of petroleum that we're spending money on? That was the question.
Well, it's our agreements require that, because we started with the agreement. I was in charge of the agreement.
Yeah.
And the confidence in Egypt when we went into socialism and in the 60s and so on, large companies were not interested to come and invest money and lose the investment. So as they say, the capital is cowards, so they didn't want to come. So they used to ask, what can you offer to make us confident that we will get our
Money back.
money back?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they said it has to go through the parliament,
Yeah.
and it will have to be issued as a law. This is the first thing.
Yeah.
And if any problems, we go to arbitration, not the courts. There's no court in our agreements. It has to go to arbitration.
Okay.
And the arbitration is not a legal arbitration. It's commercial arbitration. So if a company comes here and they have a law issued from the parliament, and they look for oil and find discoveries, and if they interfere and say, well, you don't have right to this discovery, we'll take it off. If they go to arbitration internationally, they will get, and they can even they can get the money of Egypt anywhere in the world. That's why during the revolution there were many cases of arbitration, and we lost few of them, like the gas with Spain, the gas with Israel, and luckily, we've been working on it, and they did a very good job in resolving some of the arbitration. But arbitration is final, categorical, and no, you cannot do anything about it.
Okay.
So if you have a system like this, you have to have a sovereign body to look after the tendering, the acceptance of the tendering, and then work together, negotiate the terms of the agreement,
Definitely.
present it to the parliament, because a minister has to present it to the government, a political figure, either a minister or governor can do that. But I was in charge of the environment. I was a ministerial level, but not a political minister.
Yes.
So I cannot do it. There has to be a political minister. So the Ministry of Petroleum has to be headed, of course, by a minister, and political minister is the one can streamline this concept.
Okay, here has the question answered. So we have 1 minute left, sir. Unfortunately, we want to talk about more, but you like no time for more. How do you view the future and your wishes for Egypt?
Well, I see it very bright. I see it's hard on the people because you're depriving them from advantages and privileges that they've been taking unlawfully or
Definitely. So suddenly, we're going the right
suddenly
way.
to build the country, you have to get rid of all the wrong things.
Yeah.
You cannot build the country on just improving or alleviating the effect that we inherited in the past. So this will inevitably cause it will hurt the people for a while, but at the end we are indeed
We'll
building
hurt the people who were benefiting unlawfully.
unlawfully.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well,
But at least we are. I see it. We are on the right track. It will take time and courage to do it.
Idris Al-Hafiz, thank you very much for being with us. You honored us with your presence as usual.
Thank you.
And we will see you again as matters develop, hopefully developing to take a good turn, not bad turn that what we are watching right now in the Middle East, unfortunately.
Okay.
So until we meet again, we'll have to sign off. But before that, we say God bless Egypt, God bless Egyptians, God bless our police, God bless our army, and God bless our president. ادخلوها بسلام إن شاء الله آمنين. Enter Egypt, God willing, safe, and Mubarak Shabi Mr. Blessed be Egypt, my people, from the Holy Bible and the Holy Quran. I'm Nermin Azim signing off. Goodbye now.